Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be some of my favorite palettes and what I'm going to be grabbing to use this winter. So it is technically only a few weeks into winter. Winter starts in mid-December. It's felt like winter for a while, but especially in Seattle, it's gonna feel like winter for a very long while. Winter here feels like it goes on until June. We don't really have spring. So these are the palettes that I think will just fit my mood based on the last couple years of wearing makeup this time of year and what I'm already starting to grab towards. Some of these are new, some of these are old, and I hope that this will serve as kind of an inspiration to grab some of your palettes this winter. And if you're new here, welcome. My name is Colin. I'm a non-binary Latinx scientist and lover of makeup with a soft spot for indie makeup and colorful makeup, and now high-end makeup. And I have new content every week, so I'd love to have you subscribe, especially if you like a overly analytical person's perspective on makeup. Okay, so I grabbed 10 palettes, and these were the ones that I immediately thought of for what I've been in the mood for lately with this gray, overcast Seattle weather, and what I know I'll probably be using a lot in the next few months. Some of these I haven't used in a while, so that's also like, I used this last January and February, and I have a feeling I'm gonna want to use it again. So let's pull it out and put it in the front. Front of my mind. I have a very specific organization system. So I've got a mix of different sizes, different price points. And like I said, I really want this not to be like, oh, if you don't have these, you should go buy them. But do you have something similar? And this can be inspiration. Do you have this and maybe just haven't used it in a while? I like my videos like this to be more as an inspiration to use your own makeup and what you have versus a list of things you need to go buy. I'm definitely not that person to tell you to go buy stuff. Also, some of these things are not available anymore, so, or might not be available soon. So there's always that too. Also, if you're curious about my makeup today, it's gonna be in the description box as always, but I do think it's funny. I'm gonna be talking about winter palettes, and I'm wearing kind of more autumnal look, but especially with the sweater, but I'm wearing Velvet Cinnabar as like a lip stain from Eldridge, and then I have 2 of her new Liquid Luxe shadows on my eyes. So I got all 3 of her new shades for Christmas from my husband. So I have Titania all over the lid, and it's just the most beautiful, like, antique gold with a hint of olive. Really love it. So I just have that planted on my lid and then blended the edges. And then Cressida, the pearl color, I have on my inner corner. I've worn this exact eye look a couple times lately just because it's quick, easy, pretty, kind of my everyday kind of look, and then my everyday kind of skin. So now on to eyeshadow palettes. So the first palette that I thought of, which is my favorite cool tone palette altogether, and this is not all just cool tone palettes. There's definitely a mix of tones. It's not all gonna be cool tone browns and blues. But the first palette that I thought of, which is my favorite cool tone palette, is Pat McGrath Mothership 1. So this is Subliminal, and it is tied for first place with my favorite, which is Midnight Sun. I will probably also be grabbing her new palette, Moon Seduction, a lot, because it is that like neutral to cool toned color story. But I wanted to limit it to 10, so that's an honorable mention. Really love that. And when I got it, I thought this is a good fall winter palette. And so I will be using that a lot. I already used it around Christmas, and I feel like I'm gonna be using it a lot. But there's just something about Subliminal that draws me in more than anything else. It's got the perfect like neutral to cool mattes. They're not too cool that they look ashy. You've got really beautiful one and done shades. So like last winter I was teaching and I wore this palette a lot, especially these 2 shades, because they're easy one and dones. I can blend the edge with this matte if I want, or I can just keep it as a one and done. I can use this as a highlight. If I want to add a little sparkle, I can add something from here, but this was my most used palette while teaching last year, so I have a feeling it's gonna come out a lot this year. Beautiful blue shade. Even though blue is my favorite color, the shades that I grabbed for are more like the iridescent blue, the pale gold, and then these toppers. But I love this palette, and when it's hot out, I don't really want to wear, I'll wear blue, like shiny, bright, sparkly blue in the summer and when it's hot out. But there's something about this, it's like a moodier version, and that's what I want when it's dark and gray. I want sparkle and moody colors. Okay, and the next palette, I feel a little guilty mentioning, but it is because it is no longer available and a lot of people really, really want it and are hounding Odin's Eye about that in the comments of every post, but it is the Christmas Eve palette. I mentioned when I got this that this was my favorite of the two. This is my favorite Odin's Eye palette of all time now, and it's just a perfect winter palette. You've got blues, you've got some cool tones, you've got like this really beautiful green, a mauve, an olivey shade. You've got really interesting sparkly shades. This doesn't really say Christmas to me. It says, well, the blue and silver and stuff makes me think of Hanukkah, but like it's New Year's, Hanukkah, but just winter in general. Really love this palette, and I'm really excited to keep playing with it. So it was just immediately on my mind because I love it so much, I just want to play with it more. The next palette is one that I got last January, and I used a lot last January and then a little bit here and there after, but I haven't the last few months, and it is the Nomad Whistler Snow Lodge palette. So this is being discontinued, I believe. I think it's still available, and if you do want it, and it's still available, you can get it. I don't think you need to rush out and buy anything like I've said, but if you do buy it, I have a code. It's BONES. It saves you 10%. It's always in my description box. I don't make any money from that, so always use someone's code. But I just think this was one of my top couple palettes when I ranked my Nomad palettes. I just love this. It's got really beautiful blues. These perform beautifully. The Ski Bum shade is this really beautiful blue pink duochrome. You've got some neutrals here, so you can do a really easy neutral look with the brown and this So Moussed shade, which is this really beautiful bronze. You've got kind of a brick red, which is my favorite tone of red. You've got some really beautiful greens. I really like this dark green here. So I just think this is a really fun, beautiful palette with a really good formula. And I didn't really wear it much this fall at all, like summer and fall, but like winter and spring I did a lot. So I'm excited to use this again. So the next palette should also not be a surprise. It has been in heavy rotation all fall and so far this winter, and I have a feeling it's gonna stay in heavy rotation until it's hot and sunny out. And it is the Isamaya Industrial Pigments palette. This was my favorite palette of this last year. I adore this palette so much. I really like the Wild Star as well, but this is by far my favorite. It's more innovative in formula and color story, and it's just grungy and murky, and most people will probably see this as a fall palette, I think, just because it's got a lot of green and some kind of copper, but because it's that murky, dark, sparkly vibe, I don't think I'm gonna wanna wear it a lot in the summer when it's really hot out and sunny. Actually, this last summer, I mostly just wore eyeliner, but until it's sunny, I think this is gonna be in heavy rotation for me. I just love it so much. It fits perfectly with the gloomy weather that we have here in Seattle throughout this time of year. So we don't really have 4 seasons here. We have like hot and sunny through like July, August, and September. And then we kind of have fall, and then it's just gray. It's the dark, the big dark, the big gray from October through May. So, and then we have a wet spring, wet, cold spring, and then back to hot. So this will be the gray time palette. So the next palette is the Natasha Denona Lila palette. Like I've said before, kind of on pause with buying Natasha Denona for a while, but I'm still gonna use what I have because I love the formulas. And I really love this palette. It's kind of purple, but kind of neutral, like cool tone neutral. Like if you take away these bright pops, it's very cool tone neutral. I thought about retro. I do really like retro. 3 of the shades from retro are in here, and I like these versions more. And they're the shades that I use the most in retro, like Helio and Nude Mauve. So I like these versions more. So it's just gonna be one that I grab more. I think this would also pair nicely with retro because retro has a couple like of those like cranberry-y dark shades in like the cream to powder and matte formula. And this has metallics that would pair nicely with that. So honorable mention there, kind of like the Pat palette, but I just really love this color story. I wore this a lot last January and February as well. And I'll say, while I'm talking about Natasha Denona, winter, like we're coming up, it's January 4th today. We're coming up, Valentine's Day stuff is already in stores. If you have the Love palette or any other like pink red palette, like the Lunar Beauty Moonspell Volume 2, those could also be in this list, especially if you like pinks a lot and reds. I just don't use pink and red very much. And I'm sure we're gonna start seeing a bunch of Valentine's Day releases that are pink and red and maybe some purple thrown in there. But you probably, unless you've never bought one of those palettes, you probably have one of those palettes or a color story similar. And you, just because it's Valentine, I mean, if you really love it and you have the money, you can buy it, obviously. But remember, it's the same basic color story and concept that brands keep putting out. So you probably already have it and don't need a new one. I definitely will not buy any of those, but they're not colors I reach for a lot, and I have 2 palettes like that, so I don't need any more. Okay, the next palette is another Odin's Eye palette, and this is one that I really love, but especially this time of year, and it is the Giant Wolves that Annette's Makeup Corner made. So I think Annette did an amazing job with this. I think this is a beautiful palette. I love this palette a lot. If Annette sees this video, because we do talk, love this. Still one of the best palettes Odin's Eye has ever come up with, but I think she did a great job. But this, you've got your blues, you've got these kind of purpley tones, and then you've got these murky green shades, and it's just like all of my favorite colors in one. So one of my favorite palettes of all time. But because it's so dark, it's not something I want to wear when it's hot out. That's when I want to grab something like Tina's palette. So I feel like Tina's palette was the summer palette, Judy's palette was the fall palette, and this is the winter palette. And Angelica's is the spring palette. So I think there's one for every season. So I really love this, and I am excited to play with it more. Bean. Okay, and the next palette might surprise some people because it's not, I think most people see this more as a fall palette than a winter palette, but it is the ABH Rose Metals. I have used this a handful of times since I got it during the Sephora sale, and I really, really love this. It is a little more fall, and I could put this in a fall video, but it's dark and muted, and that's what I want this time of year. So if I'm not in the mood for strictly cool tones or blues or grays or those like dark greens that are in some of those other palettes, this has like terracotta clay shades that are kind of an all year round tone for me, kind of what I have on my eyes right now. Like earthy neutrals like terracotta, olives, that's a year round color story for me, but these are like desaturated and muted in a way that makes them lean more fall winter than a brighter version like the Nouveau palette that would be more spring summer. So definitely going to be using this a lot this winter, I feel. Okay, so I've got another Pat McGrath palette here, and it is one of her quads. So this is the Celestial Divinity Luxe Quad and Interstellar Icon. I was like, what is the full name? I got this recently. I wanted this when it came out 2 years ago. And once again, was like, no, don't need it. I can wait. And I'm glad I waited because I ended up getting this for like, I think these are normally like $60 and I think I paid $30. So I'm very happy with that. Really love this, really good travel friendly for me, really good one and done mix. So this shade is really beautiful. It's showing really bright blue there, but there's like a dark periwinkle purpley blue base. So it's got blue blood, which is in decadence, but I don't have decadence yet, which is a nice soft satin metallic. So you can put all of the lids, blend it out. I really like that look. It's kind of a similar tone to Viola that came out with the new Lisa shades. If you want a video with like me comparing those to other colors that are similar, let me know in the comments. You've got a really beautiful, more champagne-y shade. It looks a little bronze when I'm looking at it this way, but it reflects very champagne. So it's a nice bright shade that you can use as the inner corner all over. And this is another one of those perfect one and done. It's like bronzy tones that I love. So this is the kind of quad I like. All of them can be used basically interchangeably, or you've got like a few different looks. It's not like a light matte, a dark matte, a light shimmer, a dark shimmer. It's way more versatile than that. So I'm gonna be grabbing this a lot. I've just been doing easy looks, one and done looks, two shadow looks, a shimmer and blending the edges kind of looks. I've been doing that more and more. So those kind of palettes and things that lend themselves to that are definitely gonna be in higher rotation. Okay, so the 9th palette is going to be the Viseart, this is the Violet palette. This is so pretty. I've only used this once, my friend Danny sent this to me actually, and I'm very thankful for that because she had got 2 of them by accident, and it's so beautiful. I've used it once or twice, I think, yeah. But I've been kind of like, when I got it was fall, and I wasn't really in the mood for purples, but now that it's getting kind of gray and dark, I'm really in the mood for purples. And the Natasha Denona Lila palette has this purple shimmers, but it doesn't have purple mattes. It's not like a true purple, and this is kind of Lila with purple mattes. So you've got some really beautiful purple and mauve tones here, and then you've got these more mauvey neutral up here. You have a really beautiful duochrome that's like really bright magenta to blue. I really love the Viseart formula. I have 2 of these size, 1 of the edits and 2 quads, and I definitely want more, but it's one of those, do I need it? No. Do I want it? Yes. I almost bought some during their end of the year sale because they were 30% off, but other than like I think I bought like 1 or 2 little things, but I pretty much didn't buy anything for December, so. And I was trying not to spend anything because I bought my husband a lot and my best friend a lot of stuff for Christmas because I like to give presents. So didn't buy myself things. So I didn't buy any more Viseart, but especially if they have another sale soon, there are a few things that I really, really want. And the last palette that I'm gonna mention is a 3rd Pat McGrath palette, and it is her first holiday palette. So I have all 3. Her new one is really lovely. I really like the formula, and I'm happy to have colorful mattes in her formula, but it's gonna be probably not used as much as some of the others. Celestial Odyssey is my favorite. Hands down, you've got a few good neutral mattes and then a lot of really beautiful shimmers, which is, I tend to use neutral mattes and colorful shimmers a lot. And then this one, I'm putting this here because I want to use this more this winter. It's pretty cool toned and a little earthy. It's very shimmer heavy. So you only have a few mattes. You have this dark mahogany, and then you've got these two purpley shades, and then the rest is shimmers. And these are beautiful shimmers, especially with like, I'll put a neutral matte in my crease and throw one of these on, but because these lean very purple and gold and pink, they're not shades that I wanted to use a lot during the hot months. I did a couple times grab like one of these shades, like one of the golds, or this green in the fall. I wore that a couple times, but I feel like now that the weather is full on gray, these beautiful purples and jewel tones and stuff all just are what I'm craving and wanting to use. And so I'm putting this in the forefront of my own mind to use this more. This was a gift from a friend, and I really love the colors, and I haven't used enough, so gonna use this more. You might be able to hear Bean snoring. She's been extra sleepy the last few days. So busy New Year's week with my best friend and lots of stuff. We went on lots of walks and did things, and she loves my best friend, so she was very happy to spend a lot of time with her. And then New Year's Eve, the four of us spent the night together, and we're up till really late. And then she went to get groomed Monday, so she's just been through a lot, and she has been sleepy and cuddly. Which I appreciate, but you will probably hear her snoring in the background. Okay, so those are the 10 palettes. Let me know what you think. What are the palettes that you are starting to reach for now that it's winter, and what you want to use of your collection more now that it's winter? There's some things that I wear all year round, but there are some seasonal things based on lack of sunlight or lots of sunlight and temperature. So some seasonal makeup, some non-seasonal makeup. I think you can wear anything anytime, but I know my mood definitely shifts when it's cold and gray. So let me know what your picks would be in the comments below, what you think of mine. As always, thank you so much for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.